cheese is not only good for your body, like I've mentioned, it has the proteins, the minerals, the vitamins, and even the fats that we need in our diet, but it's also good for your soul.
Hello and welcome to Scran, the podcast passionate about the Scottish food and drink scene. I'm your host, Rosalind Erskine, and on today's episode, I visited the Cheese Lady. Now, I think I'm a bit of a cheese lady, so it was an absolute pleasure to meet Svetlana Kukharchuk, who owns and runs 2 cheese shops in East Lothian.
I used to smell like cheese at the end of the day after I've washed and brushed all the cheeses.
I went along to the Haddington Cheese Lady store to find out more about how she came to make cheese into a business, how she sources and chooses her cheese, and well, just more about cheese in general.
You can make different colors and shapes and aromas and textures from milk, so I wanted to know more.
Svetlana also shared some of her favourite cheeses with me for a tasting, which, spoiler alert, was pretty delicious. Okay, I'm at the Cheese Lady shop in Haddington with Cheese Lady Svetlana. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I love cheese, so I'm very happy that we're here. So before we get started on a little bit of a tasting, which is what we're going to do you want to just tell us a little bit about your business, how you came to be here, how you got into cheese?
Oh my goodness. To make a long story short, because there's always a bit of a story, the business is the Cheese Lady, and we are multi-award-winning artisan cheese retailer. We're based in Scotland, in Haddington, and we have another store in North Berwick. We also do an online offering, and we ship cheeses nationwide, anywhere on the mainland UK. And my story with cheese really goes back about 20 years now, when I found myself living in one of the most exciting cities in the world, in New York City. I came across cheese a little bit by accident, maybe serendipity, and I was just completely fascinated by this stuff. The variety was what struck me the most. I couldn't believe that you could make so many varieties from something as simple as milk. So if you think about it, milk is just white, it's bland looking, but what struck me 20 years ago when I came across the world of fine cheese was that you can make different colors and shapes and aromas and textures from milk. So I wanted to know more. I dove right in and I started working in one of the best cheese retailers in New York City called Murray's Cheese. I first started volunteering there at their cheese and wine tasting events. So I was giving up my time in exchange for cheese and wine, which seemed to me like a fair exchange. And from there on, I begged them to take me on as one of their cheesemongers, because at the time at Murray's, they retailed over 300 varieties of cheese. And for me, it was absolutely fascinating. They stocked cheeses from all over the cheese-making world, from France, from Italy, Spain, and of course the best American farmhouse and artisan cheeses, which a lot of people don't kind of appreciate that they make. So that was my beginning of my cheese career, and from there on I also went on to do a cheese maturation course. Affinage is what they call it in France. I worked in their cheese cellars where I learned to mature cheeses properly, which is the process that really brings out their flavor.
Wow, I mean, that's amazing. So at the time, what was it like then 20 years ago in terms of taste for cheese versus now? And I'm assuming New York was probably kind of ahead of the curve compared to the UK.
Of course, yes, New York is another world, is another kind of country within a country. I think about it, New Yorkers are very cosmopolitan, they're well-traveled, they're very well-educated, and they're foodies in their nature. So I loved working there, but they're also very open-minded, and that's what I loved about them. When they came into the shop, they wanted to get a cheesemonger who would be able to curate their experience, and I was more than happy to volunteer to do that. So they would come in and say to me, what do you recommend? Do we have a bottle of such and such wine? What do you recommend? What's the best at the moment? And of course, through a little bit of conversation, we would end up with a fantastic selection for them. And then maybe some days later, they would come and ask for you again, and they want your recommendations, which was extremely rewarding for me. And I think in Britain today, if I'm thinking about the British consumer and our customers specifically, I think British people are also very foodie people, and I think they like trying new cheeses. A lot of people get excited about new cheeses when they come out, and of course I'm talking about farmhouse and artisan cheeses here. So I see a lot of people embracing new varieties, continental cheeses, and I think we have a really great mind here in Britain and excited to try new things. Whereas if I compare that to my time, for instance, in France, when I had a great opportunity to spend some time working there in a cheese shop, I think French people are a little bit more set in their ways. They know exactly what they're coming in, and they will not be offered anything else.
Well, that's interesting. And what do you want to give us a little explanation of what you mean by like a fine or artisan cheese versus, for example, I'm assuming what you get in the supermarket is not the same as what you're talking about.
I see there are three kind of major varieties of cheese out there. So one is farmhouse cheese, then artisan cheese, and industrial cheese. So that's the ones that you would mostly find in supermarkets. So when it comes to farmhouse and artisan cheese, I group them together and I call them fine cheese or real cheese. There are different other terms for that. But sadly, terms farmhouse and artisan are not protected by law. So sometimes they can be misused. But when I talk about fine cheeses or farmhouse and artisan cheeses, what I'd like to see in those cheeses are 6 things. They must be made from fantastic milk of happy animals. They have to be made by humans. Sometimes there will be some mechanization in the process, but humans will be involved in understanding the milk and controlling the main parts of the cheese-making process. Fine cheeses will be matured properly, so there's no cutting corners, no rush in the process. Fine cheeses will be seasonal. They will change from winter to summer, from spring to autumn. They will always be nuanced. They will not be the same throughout the year. They have great proteins and nutrients in them, so they're good for you, not only for your soul, but also for your body. And lastly, farmhouse and artisan cheeses have terroir. So if you think of concept of terroir, which is talked about a lot in the wine world, same can apply here in the cheese world. Great cheeses can really tell you a story about where they come from, the culture of that place, even the history of that place, and they will have that local nuance, which is what I love.
Wow, that's very interesting. And you don't really get that from your supermarket cheese, is basically what you're saying?
Absolutely not. And I think the key aspect here is understanding the quality of the milk that we start with for making farmhouse and artisan cheeses versus industrial cheeses. In farmhouse and artisan cheese making, the milk is absolutely superb. It's full of microflora and complexity, and therefore we end up with such complex, delicious cheeses that have not only flavor but also microflora that is good for you, like probiotic qualities and things like that. Whereas with industrial cheeses, the milk is bland. It's literally stripped of any complexity. It's often either pasteurized or even sterilized to make it completely safe, because it travels for very long distances to get to the factory. So we start with a very, very bland ingredient. That's the main ingredient of the cheese, and therefore we can't create that complexity naturally. And what happens a lot of times, industrial cheeses will be just enhanced with a lot of salt, for example, or other types of flavorings to give them flavor that doesn't exist.
Okay, that is interesting. Yeah, because I love a bit of supermarket cheddar, but knowing all that, it's a bit like, oh, but yeah.
There's a place and a time for supermarket cheeses for sure, and maybe you will be fine to put supermarket cheddars on your sandwiches. Of course, for the cost concerns, you wouldn't be having farmhouse and artisan cheeses maybe daily. But I think if you want a full cheese board experience, this is where I would be encouraging you to consider going for farmhouse and artisan cheeses. Because if you want to wow your palate, your guest's palate, then you want that complexity and that deliciousness that comes with them.
So do you want to just elaborate a little bit on the year-round eating of cheese and the book that you've written on cheese as well, which I can see on your shelf?
Absolutely. Well, the reason behind my writing the book was that I wanted to inspire people and to change their way of thinking slightly around the enjoyment of cheese. Because through working in my shops here in Scotland, I've come to realize that a lot of British people have a little bit of a hidden guilt around enjoying cheese. And what ends up happening is that they put off the enjoyment of cheese to once a year, for instance, for Christmas, and then they'll probably overindulge and not have cheese for the rest of the year or until next Christmas. And I think it's a real shame. I'm really inspired by the French people, where they continue to enjoy cheeses throughout the year. It's definitely always a part of their celebrations or any Friday or Saturday night with their friends. And I think it's part of their joie de vivre, something. I think little things like that can enhance your life. And if you don't put off joy, it makes your life fuller throughout the year. So that's why I've written my book. I was trying to convey to people that cheese is not only good for your body, like I've mentioned, it has the proteins, the minerals, the vitamins, and even the fats that we need in our diet, but it's also good for your soul. Just if you think about gathering around a cheese board with your friends, or maybe just even a partner, you don't need a big crowd, how much joy that brings, how it helps you to slow down, relax, and enjoy life throughout the year. And that's why I've written this book, to help people understand that it's doable, and it's definitely something they should be doing.
Yeah, because it's funny, because you go to a restaurant and cheese is like a dessert option, and there'll be people who are really into that, but the same people might not think about home being like, oh, I'll get some nice cheeses and have them on a Friday night. They just think it's a restaurant dessert or it's a Christmas time thing.
Absolutely. And I think it's a real shame. I think you can treat yourself nicely. You don't have to save the joy for big parties, big blowout celebrations. You can enjoy it with your partner, with your family. What happens in our house is every Saturday, which is when we finish work, and myself and my partner will sit down and enjoy a cheese board and a glass of wine. And we do that every Saturday. For us, it's like a ritual of self-care, of slowing down, of celebrating the work well done of the week. And that's something that we like doing, and we very rarely skip that. So I would like to inspire and encourage people to maybe consider doing that in their houses as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. We're in your shop in Haddington here, and it's lovely. You've got lots of different crackers and things, as well as you've got books, you've got condiments, you've got a full cheese counter. Obviously, I've taken some pictures, and you've got wine and beers and fizz. You've also got a shop in North Berwick we've talked about. So what came first, and how did you come to this area?
We started here in Haddington in a very small shop 8 years ago now, and we weren't really sure whether it was going to work, because for some reason back then there was no specialist cheese shop in East Lothian. So we decided to tread lightly, but also at the time I had a very small baby on my hands. Our daughter was 6 months old at the time. So we got this little cheese shop in Haddington, and we opened it, and it became very, very successful straight away, and it was very encouraging. But then the pandemic happened, and our online store also took off during that time, and we realized that we've outgrown the space. So what we started to want to do, we looked for bigger premises. We wanted to grow the business, and I actually wanted to improve on our presentation of cheese, because I think it's super important. People shop with their eyes, and they start thinking about that cheese enjoyment the second they come into the store. So we found this new store we're in today. It's definitely an improvement on presentation, on our cheeses, on our offering. We also have a cheese store where we can mature some of the cheeses, but we sell them actually so quickly, we don't get to mature a lot of them. And now, like you say, we have all of these other delicious things that we can offer with our cheeses, because a cheese experience isn't complete without a good artisan cracker and a nice glass of wine.
Yeah, very much so. How do you decide on the cheeses that you're going to sell or you bring in?
There isn't one answer, really. I just like to have a nice, varied selection. I do like to include as many varieties of cheese as possible, so there'll be different families of cheese. There will be your soft ones with bloomy rinds, soft goat's milk cheeses. There will be Goudas, cheddars, alpines, and lots of different blues. So I want to cover all of those main styles, and then I want to do something a little bit exciting, a little bit underappreciated. So every month here we do a cheese of the month, and usually it's a new cheese or something we haven't done for a long while, and that's where our customers get to try something new and exciting. But of course, the uniting thing for all of the cheeses that we stock, they have to be either farmhouse or artisan.
And do you find people, do they come in and are they looking for Scottish cheese, British cheese or French cheese? Is there sort of any trends that come and go, or is it very different depending on the individual?
I think it depends on the individual a lot. However, I do recognize that there is a trend for British cheeses, and we do offer a large selection of British cheeses, English, Scottish, and some Welsh cheeses. So we do like to highlight them and support British producers. However, we have so many customers who still love and adore either French or Italian or Spanish cheeses. So we do want to represent them a lot, and we do have a good variety of those cheeses as well. So everything is covered as far as varieties and countries go. So we want to offer as much as possible. At the moment, we have over 100 different types of cheese here at the Cheese Lady.
Wow. And they are all beautifully presented. I have taken some pictures, so it's lovely. Sitting in front of 3 cheeses, and it's been difficult not to pick up a bit and eat it.
So the first cheese I would like to taste together is Elric Log. That's a Scottish cheese made in the French style, like the famous French chèvre style cheeses. It's made by Errington Cheese in South Lanarkshire, and if you ask me, they are the best Scottish farmhouse cheese producer at the moment. I think they're just absolutely superb, and their dedication to raw milk especially is just absolutely incredible and worth supporting. So very recently they've acquired a herd of goats. They have their own goats, and they start producing this lovely cheese called Elric Log. It's a soft cheese. It has a edible, very thin skin, rind. Shall we have a little taste?
Yeah.
So if you think of French goat's milk cheeses, it will very much remind you of those. It's kind of wrinkled on the outside, and under the skin you will find a little bit of a breakdown. We call it a cream line, and inside it's slightly more crumbly, but it will be very nice and creamy on the palate. So let's have a taste.
It's really creamy. It's nice. It's not too strong either, because some goat's cheeses can be a bit...
It's very wonderfully herbaceous. That was the first thing that struck me right now about this cheese. It's gorgeously creamy and elegant, and you're absolutely right, it's not overwhelming. I do find that a lot of people will be concerned about goat's milk. It has this interesting reputation, shall we say, but if they were to give this cheese a try, they would see that it's very, very elegant, nice and creamy, but also very nuanced. It has layers of flavor, absolutely gorgeous. So this kind of cheese I would particularly enjoy with a nice crisp white wine. So if you think of the Loire style wines, that's the one I would be going for.
Nice. And would you have it just like this, or would you put it on a certain cracker or oatcake, or do you just like to have your cheese without?
Personally, I'm a little bit of a cheese purist. I don't like my cheese on the cracker necessarily. I do like the flavor of the cheese purely on my palate, and then I can blend it with a little bit of wine. However, there are no rules. Whatever you enjoy, absolutely do it. If you like your soft cheese on the cracker, enjoy it that way.
Okay, so we've done the ghost cheese and we're now on to this middle one. What can you tell us about this one?
So this cheese is called Burford, and it's from the Cotswolds. It's made with cow's milk in the Alpine style, and that's what's fascinating about it. I know you're probably thinking there is no Alps in the Cotswolds, and you're absolutely right, but it's the style of cheese is what we are thinking here. Alpine cheeses generally come in big wheels. They're nutty, they're sweet, they're smooth, they're absolutely gorgeous, and this is what Kingston Dairy here has produced. This cheese is just phenomenal. I find so many layers of flavor every time I taste this cheese. I think it's absolutely incredible, and as great as any Alpine cheeses from the actual Alps.
Wow.
Shall we have a try?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So let's actually have a little smell.
Ooh.
Sweet nutty flavor, and if we break it right under our nose, we can release the flavor because it's now set for a few minutes. Sweet, nutty, and caramelly, and almost like cooked bouillon type of notes. Very, very soothing.
Like it's like cheese, but not like cheese.
I know what you mean. Once you have it on your palate, it's just very smooth, like I say. It covers your palate with incredible flavors, and it's just very comforting. You can see how this type of cheese would work with a nice glass of red wine. You can cook with it, you can put it on your sandwich, you can make a fondue with it, you can make many, many things with it. But it's absolutely stunning. And if you notice, once you've swallowed the bit of cheese that you had in your mouth, then there's a nice flavor that keeps going.
There's like a sweetness.
There's a lovely sweetness. It just makes you very happy.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's my favourite so far. I like that.
Absolutely gorgeous. And if I may, I would like to suggest that we try it with our Melina honey wine. So this is the wine that we have produced for our shop. Honey wine is a little bit like mead, but I also would like to draw a distinction between mead and honey wine. This is absolutely superb because it's absolutely pure and it doesn't have any nasty additives. It's made with just honey, crystal clear water, and yeast alchemy. Nothing else added. And it creates this amazing complex flavor that's a little bit similar to dry sherry, if you're familiar with such a thing, or Vin Jaune, and it works absolutely gorgeously with complex cheeses like Burford.
Hey, you had me at sherry. You had me at mead. So what is the difference? Do they add things to mead rather than just it being completely 3 ingredients?
Yes, what I think ends up happening is that they put a lot of sugar in there and other ingredients that don't necessarily need to be there, whereas this is purely honey, water, and yeast alchemy.
Wow, well, I'm looking forward to trying it. Cheers. There you go.
And notice the aroma first as well. Again, there's a little bit of sweetness of honey, baked apple, I think a little bit of poached pear as well, and a touch of nuttiness. Very palate coating. Gorgeously sweet, but not too sweet. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, no, not too sweet. It smells kind of like it's going to be really sweet, but actually it's mellow sweetness. It's not too much. It's lovely.
It's not claggy. It doesn't just sit on your palate. It has a little bit of lift to it, and that's what I adore about this wine. And I would like to encourage you to try it with our Burford.
Okay.
So if you'd like to take a little piece of Burford, chew it up, and then add a little bit of Melina wine to that, and hopefully what's going to end up happening is that they're going to work beautifully and create a harmony on your palate. The intensity of Burford and Melina honey wine, I would say, are about the same, so they should work in perfect harmony together, and that sweetness in each should play beautifully.
Yeah, no, neither one is overpowering the other. It's lovely. And I know you want to eat our cheese all year round, but I think at Christmas this would go really well as well.
I absolutely agree. If you want something special, I think Melina and Burford or any other Alpine cheese would be a nice treat for that type of season and celebration. But I also enjoy Melina in the summer season as well. But in that case, I would probably do it as a little cocktail with a bit of Prosecco and a few ice cubes, and that's a nice refreshing drink then.
Nice. And what cheese would you have with it then? The same or something different?
I would probably have it with a softer cheese. So we have this cheese in store called Latour, which is from Italy, and it's a blend of cow, sheep's, and goat's milk, and it's very moussey and light, and that is particularly enjoyable with sparkling drinks. So if we add a little bit of fizz to a Melina, that's what it's going to create.
Sounds good. So when it comes to your cheeses, how do you travel to do tastings like across Europe and Scotland and Britain? How do you find them?
There are so many different ways I can find cheeses, and a lot of them find me. I obviously have a lot of experience in the cheese world, so a lot of the classic European cheeses I do know through my working with them. But then I do get the joy of visiting producers and cheese fairs. For instance, the one in Paris that happens once a year, I've had the great pleasure of visiting, and that's where you come across such a great variety of producers and taste so many cheeses in one place. It's phenomenal. But at the same time, we do get a lot of cheeses sent to us. We work with a variety of wholesalers and importers, and if they bring in a new cheese and they want to introduce us to it, they will send us a sample and we'll try it that way as well.
What a great thing to get in the post, lots of cheese.
I know, right? Hard job, but somebody's got to do it.
So we go into our last cheese on the cheese board, which is a blue cheese.
The last cheese that we're going to try today is called Stichelton, and it is one of my absolute favorite blues made in Britain today. It is a raw cow's milk cheese made in Nottinghamshire, and through the name you may perceive it has a relation to another famous British cheese, but the main difference here is that it's made with raw milk, and I can't stress that enough. So essentially it is like a very, very authentic blue cheese, how it used to be, British blue cheese, how it used to be back in the day. I can't wait for us to try it together. You can see that it has a generous veining with blue, and it's a nice compact paste. It has a touch of kind of gold from being cow's milk. And let's have a little smell.
Okay.
A nice mushroomy note comes through immediately, but a little bit of sweetness as well. Maybe just a touch of farmyardiness, being a farmhouse cheese, but a very, very gentle touch. And of course, if you smell the rind as well, there will be more kind of aromas and things going on the rind, but we're trying it without the rind. Let's have a little taste. A very dense cream texture, and again, very mouth-coating. It has a little bit of sweetness, but also noticeable saltiness of the blue cheese. That's very typical. But what I find is that it's not overly strong. It does have a generous amount of salt and complexity, but it's not overwhelming, and it doesn't bite your tongue too harshly. So it's still very, very beautiful cheese in that way, and very elegant. And of course, I would recommend enjoying Stichelton in the same way that you would have your Stilton for Christmas with port, to balance out the saltiness of the blue and to create that lovely balance. What do you think about it?
It's really nice. So it's if people who don't like blue cheese are not going to be offended by this. It is quite creamy and rich, and it's not too smelly or like too overpowering. So yeah, it's really reminds me of, would it be like Roquefort or something? It's that really creamy kind of nice, like I could see you making a nice pasta. I don't know if you'd cook with it, but I would probably put it in like nice sort of pumpkin pasta.
Absolutely. I mean, with all of these cheeses, I would do anything really. I could enjoy them for lunch on a sandwich. I would have them on a cheese board, and I could see them used in cooking, same as you would make, for instance, a broccoli soup with your Stilton. I could also crumble a little bit of Stichelton on top of a soup like that, or use it in a salad. They're very, very versatile, all of these cheeses, and I would like to encourage everybody to play with them and find the way that you enjoy them the most, but try not to have them ever go to waste. So if you have a little bit of any cheese left at home, think of other ways to use it if you're not using it on the cheese board.
Yeah, it's good advice. Touched a little bit on maturation, and this cheese has obviously been matured. Do you want to just give a little bit more information on how cheeses mature?
Maturation is a fascinating process, and I had the pleasure of doing this internship on maturation when I worked in New York City. And that's where I learned to appreciate how much care goes into cheeses after they're made. So making the cheese is maybe a day or two, but then there are months that follow when the cheeses are needing constant care and attention and handling in a way that will develop their flavor and texture. So you can just put them in a dark cellar and leave them there for a few months. It's actually a very labor-intensive process. So in New York, we had several cellars where I used to work, and therefore I used to smell like cheese at the end of the day after I've washed and brushed all the cheeses. But that's what's required. It's a very manual process. And another thing that I remember very vividly is when I went to do my training in France, and the affineur, the cheese maturer that I trained with, took me to one of his newest maturation locations, which was a disused train tunnel. And it was absolutely incredible what he was building there. And there were hundreds and hundreds of cheeses. And what I had to do, I had one job that day. I had to pick up each wheel of cheese, and I had to pluck the certain mold that he didn't want to develop on these cheeses. So that was my job. I had to pluck, turn them, and put them back down. And it's a labor-intensive thing, let me tell you.
Yeah, I don't imagine a lot of people would know that that's happening.
Absolutely. And then, of course, for some softer cheeses, the ones that are called washed rinds, we have to wash them in brines. So there's a little cup or bucket of a special brine that's prepared, and each cheese needs to be manually washed with it. You can either wash using a brush or a cloth, and each cheese needs to be covered fully in this brine, and that has to happen several times a week.
Wow, that's a lot.
A lot of work.
Yeah, I remember years ago a friend of my sister's telling me that cheese was made by just like putting it underground and leaving it, and I was like horrified, but she's right. Like, and I've also realised as an adult she's right, but like you don't really think about it when you're eating, a cheese sandwich or something.
Yes, absolutely. There's a long time that is involved in the cheese development after. That's what your friend was correct about, but I wouldn't just leave it. I would still at least turn it, because you don't want that wet patch developing under one side of cheese.
And will we talk a little bit just about the raw milk? So that's something that is not pasteurised, is that right? It's not boiled, it's just completely pure. But am I right in saying you can't really get that in Scotland because of laws?
Yes, absolutely. No, we can get raw milk cheeses here, and that's what I thank Errington Cheeses for. They stuck to this belief that raw milk makes superior cheese, and even though they have been under attack from the authorities on several occasions, they've stuck to their philosophy and their belief that raw milk makes superior cheese. And yes, you're absolutely right. Raw milk means that it hasn't been touched. It came straight from the animal, be it a cow, ewe, or a goat, and it went straight into the vat. And of course, that naturalness saves all of the microflora and biodiversity of the milk and goes directly into cheese, and that's how we end up with the amazing qualities of raw milk cheeses, like probiotic qualities, the lovely aromas, the lovely flavors that you can't otherwise achieve. But when it comes to pasteurized cheeses, not all of them are bad, of course, and there's better pasteurized milk, and then there's slightly less good pasteurized milk. Farmhouse and artisan cheeses can be made from pasteurized milk, and they also can be very, very complex.
Well, you've got an amazing collection of cheeses. Thank you very much for the tasting. If people do want to get involved, find out more about yourself, your business, come and visit or order, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, it's been my pleasure to welcome you here today, and I would love for people listening today to check out our website, because it has a wealth of information about our business and about our shops, all the opening hours and our locations, but also we do ship nationwide. And if you'd like to get some cheeses sent to you straight to your door, please go to thecheeselady.co.uk and you'll find all those useful details there. On the website, you'll find over 100 different varieties of cheese that we stock, and we also offer selections of cheese. So if you don't like making too many decisions, you can go for one of the selections that I've curated, and they work as a complete and a remarkable cheese board that you can just serve to your friends with a glass of wine.
Oh, that's me sold, so I don't have to make a decision. But thank you very much for your time, and it was lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Svetlana for being my guest in this episode, and thanks to you too for listening. Please remember to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Scran. Scran is co-produced and hosted by me, Rosalind Erskine, and co-produced, edited and mixed by Kelly Crichton.